Takotsubo cardiomyopathy is a temporary weakening of the heart caused by intense moments of physical or emotional stress, and is often called broken heart syndrome. Some common causes include shock, hemorrhage, grief, or being a hockey fan and bearing witness to whatever the hell your team did that one time. You know the one. Heartbreak is all too common in sports. Maybe your team had so many expectations coming into a season, only to have every single ill befall you and you're failed to make the postseason. Maybe you make the postseason, have crazy amounts of momentum, but you lose in spectacular fashion. Maybe you have a beloved member of your team who you were never able to win a cup with, and you play out their final game with that knowledge that you never got the job done. Whatever it is, we've all experienced our team taking our fragile little hearts in their hands and...
get the squish just like grip.
So I thought, screw it! Let's take the most painful and heartbreaking moments for each NHL team and make a video out of them. After Florida just won the cup again, I know many people are coping and seething right now, so no better time like the present. And what the hell, might as well turn this into a tier list as well, because isn't it so fun trying to quantify sadness? I'm gonna lay a couple of ground rules for this video first though. First off, only one game per team. Teams are allowed to dish out multiple heartbreaks, but they only get to be the victim once. Second, these games all have to happen after the 2004-2005 lockout. Not only did I not start watching hockey until after that lockout on account of the fact that I was 2 years old when it happened, but it feels like a truly modern take on these franchises. Besides, the fresher the heartbreak, the easier it is to remember. Third, these can be literally any game played. We're not confined to simply the playoffs for this. Besides, for some of you, it's been so long that I bet you forget what losing in the playoffs even feels like. Lastly, these don't necessarily have to be losses, but rather games that signify the most depressing moment of a team. You will absolutely understand why wins still qualify for this list when they come up. Now before we get started, let's go over the tiers real quick. No tier list is complete without a tier tour. At the bottom, you'll get over it. This is for the lowest amount of pain, which means a couple of things. 1, you haven't been around long enough to experience the true pain. 2, your expectations are so in the gutter that your painful moments sort of blend together. Or 3, your most painful moment was immediately succeeded by the best moment of your franchise. Deflating, but it happens to the best of us. Either way, you'll get over it. Next up is wincing and recoiling. Again, either your low points sort of blend together so this isn't too bad in comparison, or it's another minor setback to a major comeback. However, this undoubtedly has a little more edge to it, you know what I mean? Like, this is the difference between just, oh, you got embarrassed that one time, and oh, that may have some more implications. I hope that explains it a little better. This is the type of shit that calls into question how good your team actually is. Third is serious pain. This is when the losses no longer blend together. When you could definitively point to a game that signaled the heartbreaking end to an era, a memorable loss to a divisional rival, or a painstaking playoff loss. Bonus points if it's in overtime. Not only does it linger with you, but it lingers with your rivals as well, and it becomes one of the hallmark bits of every laughingstock. Our penultimate tier is right in the heart. These suck to watch if you're a fan. You watch your team die on ice, and not only is it humiliating, but painful. This might be when the trauma kicks in and you suppress it with every fiber of your being. You try your best to forget it, but your friends always remind you of it. Last but most certainly not least, at 2, Bettman, your terrors that haunt you every chance they get. The most humiliating of losses that no matter how much therapy you go through, you can never recover from it. It could break you, it could break your spirit, it could break your fandom. Nonetheless, you're broken watching it again. And again, and again, and again. Now grab your life alert, friends, because when these teams fall, they might not be able to get back up. Oh, if there were ever a memory I could erase from my brain, it would take me a while to narrow it down, but this would certainly be one of them. Although looking at the Panthers' dominance of the past few years makes me feel slightly better.
Don't you dare finish that sentence!
The Boston Bruins have the best regular season in NHL history at 65-12-5 and go up against the Florida Panthers, who only really made the playoffs because the Penguins channeled their inner Titan submersible. Bruins get out to a 3-1 series lead, but lose critical games 5 and 6 before coming back to TD Garden for Game 7. Things start on a sour note for the Bruins after a Patrice Bergeron goal gets disallowed for the most pedantic hand pass challenge I've ever seen in my life. Although, because it's the playoffs, you kind of got to challenge it just in case it gets overturned. But the Bruins rally back to take the lead before Brandon Montour's 5th goal of the series forces overtime with a minute left in the game, before Carter Verhaeghe pots a goal that had me drunkenly ranting for 35 minutes before I deleted the video. As a Bruins fan, this hurt more than anything. The last chance with the core I grew up rooting for pissed away in a flurry of hell. 135 points for the last games of Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci's career to end like that. This is the easiest et-tu Bettman of my life. I think ever since around 2010, the Sabres have just been mired in such constant mediocrity at best that they've, for the most part, forgotten what it's like to be happy. I'm sorry, Sabres fans, but this is the closest they've gotten to it since the lockout. After Danny Briere's overtime theatrics forced Game 7 against the Carolina Hurricanes, the Sabres are raring and ready to punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup Finals again. However, despite a solid second period with goals from Doug Janik and Jochen Hecht, the Sabres would crumble under the weight of Rod Brind'Amour and Justin Williams, while repeatedly getting bullied around by their future general manager, Kevin Adams. Any attempt to push past got stonewalled by prime Cam Ward, and they'd lose 4-2. They'd make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals the next year, losing 4-1 to Ottawa, and they'd never make it that far again. Although, after 14 years without playoffs, I think Sabres fans would gladly trade it all to get stonewalled in the Eastern Conference Finals again. Once again, recoiling levels. Our first one of the video. You're probably wondering why I chose this one, considering the fact that the Penguins beat them in the Cup Finals Game 7. No higher stakes than that, right? Well, consider the Red Wings just won the Cup the previous year, and it gets a little less depressing. Kinda hard to run it back exactly the same against the exact same team. No. This final game of the 2016-17 season signified the death of an era for the Wings, with this being the final game ever played in Joe Louis Arena. While the celebration of Henrik Zetterberg's 1,000th game and the 2-goal performance from Riley Shahan had softened the blow even a little bit, this final game at one of the most storied arenas in NHL history signaled the end of the Red Wings' dominance. With this year being the start of what is now 9 years without a postseason in Detroit after 25 consecutive seasons of making the playoffs. Datsuk, Hasek, Lidstrom, Osgood, Zetterberg, all gone. All that remains now is whatever semblance of an Yzer plan this team still has. Despite this young core of Mort Seider, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, Marco Kasper, and Simon Edvinsson all being undoubtedly talented, they've never been to the playoffs. And considering how often Yzerman changes philosophies, I can't see things getting any better for them anytime soon. Serious pain. You know, it's hard to pin down a truly heartbreaking moment for a team that, until the year prior to this one, hadn't won a playoff series since 1996, so this will have to do. Despite looking shoddy going into the playoffs, the Panthers this year were far from terrible. A blockbuster trade for Matthew Tkachuk pushed the team into true contention. They ripped the hearts out of the record-breaking Boston Bruins, mulched the Leafs in just 5 games, and continued the long-honored tradition of sweeping the Hurricanes out of the Eastern Conference Finals. The bandwagon is running at full speed directly into a brick wall. The Vegas Golden Knights, adamant to prove that you can in fact buy a Stanley Cup, opened a can of whoop-ass on the Panthers, with the magnum opus being Game 5. Not only did they get treated to one of the worst losses in a cup-clinching game, with key contributors Jonathan Marchessault and Riley Smith being former teammates cast off in the great fucking that was the Vegas expansion draft, but to squeeze a little battery acid in the wound as well, Captain Mark Stone puts the empty net dagger in for a hat trick. Even if the Panthers won the Cup the following year, that's gotta sting just a little. But they won the Cup the next 2 years! I don't care that you lost 9-3. You won the Cup 2 years in a row. You got over it. Winning solves all problems. Now get out of my sight. Okay, but in all honesty, thank you so much for getting Marchand one more Cup. He really deserved it, and it made me so happy to see him hoisting the Cup again. Oh, les habitants. Ye of perpetual superiority complex with very few post-lockout results to justify it. With everything in 2021 being shuffled around due to COVID restrictions, Montreal was thrown headfirst into the deep end in a really weak Canadian-only division, but managed to swim, stunning the Leafs in yet another Game 7 loss for them, trampling the Jets like Mark Scheifele did to Jake Evans, and upsetting the Vegas Golden Knights in spectacular fashion. As had been the case since 2007, Carey Price had been the backstop to save them in many times of crisis this postseason. But that would all change once the death by 1,000 cut style of offense the Habs had couldn't keep up with the $18 million over the cap Tampa Bay Lightning. This, sadly, would be the closest Price would ever get to a Stanley Cup. One of the best goaltenders to ever pad up in the show, and the best that his team can do is getting plastered in 5 in the best chance he ever got. Knowing they wasted one of the best goaltenders in NHL history is serious pain. Pour la honte, les habitants. This was pain to watch, with Craig Anderson being the hottest goaltender in the playoffs to that point, and Erik Karlsson, Bobby Ryan, and Mike Hoffman being electric and carrying this team through the fire. A meeting with the Nashville Predators in the finals would have flipped the entire NHL on its head. And then Chris Kunitz buries a floater in double overtime. Getting outshot 42-29 will do that to you. However, honestly, what I think hurts more in this is the fallout. The team afterwards was in complete shambles. After being so close to the finals, constant overcorrection in player acquisitions, hello Matt Duchene, the death of longtime general manager Brian Murray, the team openly crapping on their penalty kill in the backseat of an Uber, and the insanity of Hoffman's girlfriend mocking the stillborn son of Karlsson's wife sent the Sens into a complete freefall that only now are they starting to get anywhere close to out of. With the new management and new ownership getting Ottawa back to relevance, this is still the best their franchise has done in a decade and a half. Hopefully you'll get over it one day, but for now, you're still wincing and recoiling. '62-win season. Nikita Kucherov won the Hart and the Art Ross. Andrei Vasilevsky won the Vezina. Steven Stamkos and Braden Point had both hit the 40-goal threshold as well. The Blue Jackets hadn't won a single playoff series in their existence. Everything was gearing up for the Lightning to punch their ticket to the second round before they had even laced up their skates. And right there is when they lost the series. They looked way too far ahead of their opponent and got completely shelled. With an unexpectedly stacked roster of their own, the Blue Jackets, who again had not a single series win to their existence, nutted up with the surges of Matt Duchene, Artemi Panarin, Pierre-Luc Dubois when you still gave a shit, Seth Jones, and Sergei Bobrovsky to deliver, in my opinion, a loss that would probably be more shameful if Tampa hadn't course-corrected the next 2 years when everything went to hell. I don't know. Tampa's been pretty good for their entire existence. Hard to find a game that twists the knife. This is the same for Florida for me, even though this is far more embarrassing in every way, shape, and form. And what I could probably suggest is a worse series loss than Boston to Florida, it doesn't matter. Even if it was under really weird circumstances, Tampa still won 2 cups. And they can't hear me over the sounds of Amalie Arena erupting in cheers over it. They got over it. The Leafs are such an interesting franchise. So much consistent talent and yet mired in their own insanity to the point where they're the laughingstock of the league at this point. While 9 consecutive playoff appearances have returned to 9 increasingly heartbreaking exits, this spot could really not be given to any other exit than this year. Finally in the second round again, for real this time. Not getting shellacked in 5 by Florida. Instead, losing 3 straight after being up 2-0 and now fighting for your lives. You have all the talent money can buy. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, the core 4. This is their time and they need to fucking seize it. Oh, they seize alright. They seize up on the ice with 3 goals from Florida to put it all away. Not even Max Domi doing his best could save this sorry sack. And no better way to close it out than a familiar face. Remember Brad Marchand? How he would repeatedly rip the soul out of your body Shang Tsung style? Oh, he's back. And there's the dagger.
studying up on the Leafs history, the Marner history, I feel like it still makes what happened this year in the playoffs hurt just as much as if you've been watching the entirety of the Marner era. 2025 finally being the year where something happens, and all because Shanahan gets fired and Marner was going to leave in free agency and then gets traded because of alleged tampering. We shouldn't be at this point. This should have changed forever ago. Oh, the cap's going to keep going up, so it's going to make the contracts look good. First of all, Marner should have never been paid what he got paid, and screw Darren Ferris for making everything about Marner. But what happens if the cap does go up and COVID never happens and we still get the same results? Do the changes happen sooner? I think that's what makes losing in 2025 hurt so much. It has nothing to do with the fact that we went 7 games against the now back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. That doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that this team should have made changes years ago and didn't. And now, here we are. And there's going to be so many what-ifs to ponder. What if COVID never happens? What if 2021, the team got changed after that? What if the team got changed after 2022? What if the team got changed after 2020? Shit's wild, man. It's just wild.
The Leafs are amazing, man. I could make a whole video of the top 10 most embarrassing Leafs losses since the lockout and still have 5 honorable mentions. Hell, at least 5 other games had me reconsidering this spot. But with the era of the core 4 all but over,
Why the fuck is Tavares back?
it couldn't have been any other game but this. A decade of tire spinning in what was supposed to be an era to remember. All to trip over your own skate laces and never see the glories of a second playoff round win. Et tu, Bettman?
Congratulations, Carolina! You won a game in the Eastern Conference Finals!
And just like the Leafs losing in 5 to Florida in 2023, it feels like even more of a slap in the face than just being swept. This is such a weird finals because Colorado decided to lose their minds and you were the first suitors. The trade for Mikko Rantanen honestly may have been enough to get you over the hump and win an Eastern Conference Finals for once. But then Dallas offered their future. It was too good to pass up. And while you can sleep a little easier at night knowing you have 2 additional firsts and thirds to play with, does that really make up for losing 16 of 17 in the Eastern Conference Finals? Does it make up for knowing you blew another fantastic postseason from Seth Jarvis and Sebastian Aho? Hell, Logan Stankoven, who came over in that trade, tried his damnedest to do anything to help, and Rod Brindamore decided his best shot at winning with the season on the line was to put out Jordan Martinook as the 6th attacker. That alone is worthy of wincing and recoiling. I don't know, I'd put you guys higher, but quite frankly, a lot of teams would be lucky just to lose in the Eastern Conference Finals once in 16 years. This just sucks. This absolutely sucks. After the events of August 29th, 2024, we all became Blue Jackets fans. No matter what, seeing this team get some semblance of life breathed into them by one of the most talented players in hockey in Johnny Gaudreau, only for it to be stripped from them by a drunk driver, made us all feel for the organization. And after picking up the pieces, they started putting it together. Strong showcases from young guns like Kent Johnson and Adam Fantilli, a Norris caliber season from Zach Werenski, and solid performances from Sean Monahan and Kirill Marchenko kept them in the race after a rough skid in March. But come the last game of the season, they had little control over their destiny. But all they needed was the red-hot Carolina Hurricanes to smother the Canadiens. The Habs won. After trying so hard to do it for Johnny, they come up just short. Fuck you, Sean Higgins. Fuck you, and fuck drunk drivers everywhere. Right to the heart. 13 forever. This was supposed to be the final year that Patrick Elias and Martin Brodeur would be able to compete for a cup. Even with the young core coming up through the ranks with the likes of Travis Zajac, Ilya Kovalchuk, Zach Parise, and Adam Henrique, Father Time was, is, and will forever remain undefeated. And unfortunately for this core, their opponent wasn't keen on falling into rage-induced pitfalls. 3 different 10-minute misconducts for the Devils sealed their fate in this, and while the Kings would take this success and run it back 2 years later, the Devils never found their 5th gear. Only 3 playoff appearances since this game, and only 1 trip to the second round. Even in what's supposed to be a new age with the Hughes brothers, Timo Meier, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, they've never found that same success. There's been so many expectations put on this Devils core that I really wonder when they're actually going to get over the hump, if at all. Until then, this is some serious pain. Guess running with the Devil ain't so difficult after all. Let's go back through the Islanders' history post-lockout real quick. Wow, that's almost as bleak as the Sabres. With it as meager as it is, really the only way you could conceivably be disappointed is the bubble seasons where you made the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row. We're going to go with the 2021 one because you haven't won a series since. Your entire game plan was Semyon Varlamov playing eons above his head and killing your opponents with a death by a thousand cuts style of play with key plays from Cal Clutterbuck and Matt Barzal. And then you run into a team like Tampa, who refuses to play with its food to the extent that you guys do. No games with more than 3 goals all series. Even in a clean as hell Game 7, you got smothered by Tampa with a Yanni Gourde kill shot, and it put your team in the gutter. But like I said, realistically, what expectations have you guys had since the lockout? Even being gifted a generational talent in John Tavares couldn't get you out of the rut for a decade. Heartbreak can't be too bad if you're this heartbroken to begin with, wincing and recoiling. You, on the other hand, actually had expectations, and many of them rode heavily on one of the best goaltenders in the history of the game, Henrik Lundqvist. With a strong young core of Chris Kreider, Ryan McDonough, Matt Zuccarello, and Carl Hagelin, alongside veteran leadership in Martin St. Louis, this was your time. This was your best shot at a cup in this window, and nothing makes the heart race more than a 2-overtime game. And it ended with an odd man rush that Henry had no shot on. Fourth line, Alec Martinez with the dagger and the jump for joy. It's a shame Lundqvist never won a cup. A perfect opportunity to assert yourself, and you blew it. Even if they somehow get Shesterkin a cup in this window, this will never not be depressing to see. This is similar to Carey Price in a way. You knew that you had one of the best goaltenders of all time, and you just could not surround him with the requisite talent that he needed to actually win the freaking cup. And I think similar to Carey Price, you guys still feel some serious pain about this. No, I'm not putting the 2010 Cup Finals loss here for a very important reason that will be coming up very soon. In a roundabout way, you won that series and I'll forever consider you guys the winners of that cup. But this is a different kind of pain that I won't let you guys recover from. A strong young core of Mike Richards, Joffrey Lupul, Jeff Carter, and Scott Hartnell. Veteran leadership on the back end with Jason Smith and Darian Hatcher, Marty Baron playing out of his mind in the playoffs. What could possibly go wrong? Well, a young upstart in-state rival Penguins team at the start of the Crosby, Malkin, Letang era, with pre-eczema Marian Hossa raking that year. Also doesn't help that Baron chose that moment to turn into a pumpkin and allow 6 Penguins to absolutely torch you for over a point per game. And the dagger, a 6-0 smackdown with you having nothing to say about it. The Flyers don't really give anyone anything to cheer about it. They've sort of just been the punching bag of everyone in the NHL since the Cup final loss. But I guarantee you they'll still be upset if you remind them of this. Wincing and recoiling. As for you, Pens fans, you're not very used to frustrating losses until recently. And what better game to select than the one that signaled the official beginning of the end? The Crosby, Malkin, Letang era of NHL history is one I'm so happy to have grown up in, even if my team frequently fell victim to it. So to see it die out like this is just painful. Another strong season from Crosby, Letang, and Gensel. Tristan Jarry was still a great goaltender, if not frighteningly inconsistent. So much so that following frustrations from him and backup Casey DeSmith, the Pens had to turn to AHL goaltender and spiky pork and broccoli enthusiast Luis Domingue to close out Game 1. He played his heart out battling deep into 3 overtimes, but against Igor Shesterkin at the other end of the ice, not a chance. And even though all 3 members of the core persist to this day, it's nowhere near the same. This was the last game the Penguins played in the playoffs, with all of them deep into their 30s and Letang's constant injury scares. This may have been the last chance for them to do anything more. 3 cups and plenty of individual hardware keeps them all warm at night, but what a nothing way to close out this series. With this being the end of a dynasty, I can't say I feel too bad for them, especially with the insanity Jim Rutherford kept trying to pull. You guys are wincing and recoiling at this one, but I hope the 3 cups are worth it. It was rough for the Capitals for a while. After making the cup in '98, they had a 20-year-long stretch where they were either the hottest team in the Metro or the bottom had completely fallen out. But one thing was constant: the inability to make it past the second round of the playoffs. Whether it was against the Penguins or the Rangers or any other team, they would make it around and then fall apart like a slightly more competent iteration of the Leafs. But this year is different. They're the goddamn President's Trophy winner. Ovi and Backy are on a torrid streak, and I can't tell if that's Braden Holtby or George Vezina in net. They fired Barbecue Bruce into the sun a few seasons ago, and they have one of the all-time greats in Barry Trotz leading the helm. This is their time. They're gonna make it past the second round. They're not gonna get shut out in a home game 7. They just got shut out in a home game 7. Against the fucking Penguins. For the 7th time in a row against that team. Can't ever catch a break, can ya? Now, don't worry, Caps fans, you know what happened the next time you went up against the Penguins. Raising that banner doesn't feel quite as good without smothering the Penguins in 6 in that accursed second round. Not to mention, Alex Ovechkin finally broke the goal record. So not only do you have that ring in hand, but he has the most prestigious record in the entire National Hockey League in his back pocket. Much as this might still sting a bit, you got over it. You want to take things further than hockey by going after his family? That's rubbing cactus on your ass cheeks level of pain. Now this is something that is only going to appear here and nowhere else in the video.